What if I told you that sometimes the cure we desperately seek isn't found in million-dollar hospitals, but in the most unexpected places? Stay with me until the end of this story, because what happens will restore your faith in humanity and remind you that miracles do exist. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories that will change the way you see the world. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite at Manhattan Memorial Hospital, the most prestigious medical facility on the East Coast. Inside room 4701, a little girl lay motionless in a bed that seemed to swallow her fragile 7-year-old frame. Charlotte Ashford, daughter of billionaire tech mogul Richard Ashford, had become a medical mystery that had stumped the finest medical minds in the country. Richard Ashford stood by the window, his reflection ghostly against the dark sky. At 52, he had built an empire from nothing, revolutionizing cloud computing and artificial intelligence. Forbes had called him the man who never fails. But as he looked at his daughter, pale and growing weaker by the day, he felt like the biggest failure in the world. Mr. Ashford, Dr. Helena Morrison, the hospital's chief of medicine, entered the room with a tablet in her hands and exhaustion in her eyes. "I've just received the results from the team at Johns Hopkins. I'm afraid they concur with our assessment. Charlotte's condition is unprecedented." Richard turned slowly, his jaw tight. "That's what the last 49 specialists told me, doctor. Unprecedented. Unusual. Perplexing. I'm not paying you millions to tell me you're perplexed. I'm paying you to fix my daughter." Dr. Morrison's expression remained professional, though sympathy flickered in her eyes. "Mr. Ashford, I understand your frustration. We've run every test imaginable. Neurologically, there's nothing wrong with Charlotte. Her brain scans are perfect. Her blood work is normal. Her organs are functioning optimally. But she won't eat, she barely responds to stimuli, and she's fading. It's as if she's given up." 7-year-olds don't give up, Richard snapped, his voice breaking slightly. "They don't understand the concept. With respect, sir, they do. Especially children who have experienced significant trauma." Richard's hands clenched into fists. The trauma. Always back to the trauma. 6 months ago, his wife Catherine had died in a car accident. Charlotte had been in the car. Physically, she'd walked away with minor bruises. Mentally, emotionally, she had retreated into a shell that no amount of therapy, medication, or medical intervention could crack. "I've brought in psychiatrists, child psychologists, grief counselors," Richard said, his voice hollow. "I've tried everything. Sometimes," Dr. Morrison said gently, "what a child needs isn't something we can prescribe." Richard wanted to throw something. He had built his entire life on the principle that every problem had a solution, every challenge could be overcome with enough resources and determination. But his little girl was slipping away, and his billions couldn't buy her back. After Dr. Morrison left, Richard sat beside Charlotte's bed and took her small, cold hand in his. She stared at the ceiling, her blue eyes vacant, as if she were looking at something far beyond this world. "Charlie," he whispered, using the nickname she'd loved before the accident. "Please come back to me. Please. I can't lose you too." There was no response. There never was any more. Across the city, in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, Marcus Chen was having a very different kind of evening. His 8-year-old son Tommy was doing homework at the kitchen table while Marcus prepared their dinner, spaghetti with meat sauce, Tommy's favorite, though Marcus had learned to make it stretch across 3 nights by using more pasta and less meat. "Dad, I got an A on my science project," Tommy announced, holding up a paper with a bright red mark at the top. Marcus turned from the stove, his tired face breaking into a genuine smile. "That's my boy. I knew that volcano was going to be awesome. See what happens when you put in the effort?" Tommy beamed, and in that moment, Marcus felt like the richest man in the world, even though his bank account would have disagreed. He worked as a delivery driver for Quick Ship Express, pulling 12-hour shifts 6 days a week to keep the rent paid and food on the table. It had been just the two of them since Tommy's mother had left when Tommy was 2, unable to handle the pressure of parenthood and poverty. Marcus had never blamed her. Those early years had been brutal. He'd worked 3 jobs, survived on 4 hours of sleep a night, and learned to be both mother and father to a child who needed more than one exhausted parent could provide. But somehow, they'd made it work. Tommy was thriving, happy, and kind, the kind of kid who shared his lunch with classmates who forgot theirs and helped elderly neighbors carry their groceries. "After dinner, can we work on my reading?" Tommy asked. "I want to finish the book before Friday." Marcus felt a surge of pride. Tommy loved reading, devouring books from the library with an appetite that reminded Marcus of his own childhood, before life had gotten complicated. "Absolutely, buddy. But you have to eat all your vegetables." Tommy made a face but nodded. It was their routine, their little slice of normalcy in a world that often felt chaotic and overwhelming. After dinner, as Tommy read aloud from his current adventure novel, Marcus's phone buzzed with the schedule for the next day. He scanned the list of deliveries: medical supplies to Manhattan Memorial Hospital, documents to a law firm in Midtown, packages to various residential addresses. Standard stuff. He set the alarm for 5 a.m. and tried not to think about how tired he already felt. "Dad?" Tommy looked up from his book. "Do you ever wish we had more money? Like, really rich?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Sometimes I wish we had more security, sure. It would be nice not to worry about the rent or whether we can afford new shoes when you grow out of your old ones. But you know what? We have something more important than money." "What's that?" "We have each other, and we have love. There are people with all the money in the world who don't have that. And I wouldn't trade you for all the riches on earth." Tommy smiled and went back to his book, satisfied with the answer. Marcus watched him for a moment, his heart full despite his wallet being empty. He had made mistakes in his life, taken wrong turns and missed opportunities, but Tommy was proof that he'd done something right. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Manhattan Memorial Hospital at 7:30 a.m. with a cart full of medical supplies. He'd been making deliveries to the hospital for 3 years and knew the routine well: check in at the loading dock, get the signatures from the receiving department, maybe chat with Gary the security guard about last night's game, and move on to the next stop. But today something was different. As he wheeled his cart through the service corridors, he heard raised voices coming from one of the executive conference rooms. "I don't care if it's unprecedented." A man's voice, sharp with desperation and anger. "Find someone who can help her. Fly in specialists from Europe, Asia, anywhere. I will pay whatever it costs." Marcus slowed his cart. He knew he should keep moving. Eavesdropping on hospital business was not part of his job description. But something in that voice, the raw pain beneath the anger, made him pause. "Mr. Ashford, we've exhausted every avenue," a woman's calmer voice responded. "Medically, we've done everything we can. Charlotte's condition is psychological, emotional. She needs something we can't provide in a hospital setting." "Then what does she need?" The man's voice cracked. "Just tell me what she needs, and I'll get it." There was a long pause. "I don't know. I wish I did." Marcus felt a tug of sympathy for the man, whoever he was. He understood that kind of helplessness, that desperate need to fix something for your child when you didn't know how. He'd felt it when Tommy had nightmares about his mother leaving, when Marcus couldn't make the monsters go away with logic and reassurances. He continued with his delivery, but the conversation stayed with him. After completing his hospital rounds, Marcus had a few minutes before his next delivery. He grabbed a coffee from the hospital cafeteria and sat in the public waiting area to review his schedule. He was checking his phone when he noticed a small commotion near the elevators. A man in an expensive suit was walking briskly toward the exit, flanked by two assistants who were struggling to keep up. Marcus recognized him immediately, Richard Ashford, one of the most famous faces in tech. His company's software was on virtually every device in the world. But the man Marcus saw now bore little resemblance to the confident titan who appeared in magazines and news segments. This man looked haggard, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. He passed within a few feet of Marcus without seeing him, lost in his own private hell. On impulse, Marcus stood up. He didn't know what he was going to say or do, but something compelled him to act. "Excuse me, Mr. Ashford?" The billionaire stopped and turned, his expression impatient. "I'm not giving interviews." "No, sir, I'm not a reporter," Marcus said quickly. "I'm just. I couldn't help but overhear earlier. About your daughter. I'm sorry for what you're going through." Richard's assistants moved to intercept, but Richard held up a hand. He studied Marcus for a moment, taking in the quick ship uniform, the worn but clean appearance of a man who worked hard for a living. "Thank you," he said stiffly, then turned to leave. Marcus knew he should let it go. This wasn't his business. But he thought of Tommy, of how he would move heaven and earth if his son were suffering, and the words came tumbling out. "I know I'm nobody, just a delivery guy, but I'm also a single dad. And sometimes when my son was going through tough times, the things that helped weren't the expensive solutions. They were the simple ones. The human ones." Richard stopped again, and this time when he turned back, there was something different in his eyes, not hope exactly, but perhaps the faintest possibility of it. "What are you suggesting?" Marcus felt his cheeks flush. Who was he to give advice to a billionaire? "I don't know your specific situation, sir. But kids, they need to feel safe and loved and normal. Sometimes they need to remember what it feels like to just be a kid again, without all the pressure and pain. My daughter won't eat, won't speak, barely responds to anything," Richard said, and Marcus could hear the exhaustion in every word. 50 different doctors have examined her. None of them can reach her. Marcus thought of Tommy after his mother left, how the boy had withdrawn into himself, how nothing Marcus did seemed to help until one day Marcus had simply sat with him on the floor, building with blocks, not trying to fix anything, just being present. "Maybe she doesn't need to be reached," Marcus said slowly. "Maybe she needs to know it's okay to just be wherever she is right now. That someone will sit with her in the dark until she's ready to see the light again." Richard stared at him for a long moment. His assistants were shifting uncomfortably, clearly wondering why their boss was wasting time talking to a delivery driver. But Richard seemed to see something in Marcus's face, or perhaps heard something in his words that resonated. "What's your name?" Richard asked. "Marcus Chen, sir." "Well, Marcus Chen," Richard extended his hand, and Marcus shook it, feeling the strength and desperation in the billionaire's grip. "Thank you for taking the time to speak to me. I hope you're right about the simple solutions." As Richard walked away, Marcus felt both foolish and oddly satisfied. He probably hadn't helped at all, but at least he'd tried. Sometimes that was all you could do. He went back to his deliveries, pushing the encounter from his mind. He had packages to deliver and a son to get home to. Other people's problems, no matter how sympathetic he felt, weren't his responsibility. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. 3 days later, Marcus received an unusual call from his supervisor at Quickship Express. "Chen, I've got a special assignment for you," his boss Dave said. "Private delivery, big client, very particular requirements. They requested you specifically." Marcus frowned. "Requested me? Why?" "Didn't say. Just gave your name and employee number. It's a good gig, though, pays triple rate for the afternoon. You interested?" "Triple rate?" Marcus did the mental math. That would cover Tommy's school supplies for the semester and maybe leave enough for a small buffer in their emergency fund. "Yeah, I'm interested." What's the delivery? Address is a private residence on 5th Avenue. You'll be delivering children's books, toys, and some other items. Client wants you there at 2 p.m. sharp. And Marcus? Don't screw this up. Client specifically said if this goes well, there could be regular work. After hanging up, Marcus felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. A private residence on 5th Avenue meant serious wealth. Someone must have given them his name as a recommendation, though he couldn't imagine who. When his shift ended at 1 p.m., Marcus went home to shower and change into his cleanest uniform. Tommy was at school, so Marcus left him a note saying he'd be home by dinner time with a surprise. Maybe they could afford pizza for once instead of their usual budget meals. The 5th Avenue address turned out to be a building that Marcus had passed hundreds of times but never imagined entering. The doorman took one look at his uniform and delivery cart and directed him to the service entrance, where a private elevator whisked him up to the penthouse. The doors opened to reveal not a hallway but a private foyer that was bigger than Marcus's entire apartment. A woman in professional attire greeted him with a tight smile. "Mr. Chen? I'm Rebecca, Mr. Ashford's personal assistant. Thank you for coming." Marcus felt his stomach drop. Ashford. Richard Ashford. The man from the hospital. This couldn't be a coincidence. Is this about our conversation the other day? Marcus asked carefully. Because I didn't mean to overstep. Mr. Ashford would like to speak with you. If you'll follow me? She led him through a penthouse that seemed more like a museum than a home, all glass and steel and expensive art. But despite the opulence, there was a coldness to it, a lack of the warmth that Marcus associated with home. No family photos on the walls, no children's drawings on the refrigerator, no evidence that a child lived here at all. Rebecca showed him into a study where Richard Ashford sat behind a massive desk. The billionaire looked slightly better than he had at the hospital, but the strain was still evident in the lines around his eyes. "Mr. Chen. Thank you for coming." Richard stood and gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." Marcus sat, his delivery cart beside him, feeling completely out of his depth. "Mr. Ashford, I'm not sure why I'm here." "I've been thinking about what you said at the hospital," Richard interrupted. "About simple solutions. About meeting children where they are instead of trying to force them to be somewhere else." He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. "Charlotte is home now. The hospital couldn't help her, so I brought her here. But she's the same. Worse, maybe. She just lies in her room, staring at nothing." "I'm very sorry, sir," Marcus said genuinely. "But I'm not sure what I can do. I'm not a doctor or a therapist." "No, you're a father. And your son is happy. I can tell by the way you talk about him." Richard's voice took on a bitter edge. "I've given Charlotte everything money can buy, but I don't know how to give her what she actually needs. I thought maybe you could talk to her. Maybe a different voice, a different approach." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. "Mr. Ashford, I can't just walk into your daughter's room and expect to magically fix what 50 doctors couldn't." "I'm not asking you to fix her," Richard said, and the rawness in his voice made Marcus stop. "I'm asking you to try. I'm asking you to do whatever it is you do that makes your son look at you like you hung the moon. I'm asking for help, Mr. Chen, and I don't do that easily." Marcus could see it cost the proud man to make this admission. He thought of Tommy, of what he would want someone to do if their situations were reversed. He thought of that little girl, alone in her pain, surrounded by luxury but starving for something no amount of money could buy.